Good evening, and welcome to a special report from the Human Error News Network. We're diving deep into the one system that's supposed to save your life and what happens when that very system becomes a source of pure panic.
Imagine waking up to this message. On January 13, 2018, for over 1 million people, this wasn't a movie. For 38 solid minutes, an entire state believed they were about to die. All because someone, somewhere, clicked the wrong thing on a screen.
Now, does that feeling of getting an alert ever give you whiplash? 1 minute, it's a potential apocalypse. The next, it's a vague, all clear for something you never even knew was happening. It really makes you wonder, how can we possibly trust a system that can't tell the difference between the end of the world and total nonsense?
And let's be clear, that feeling you have, that confusion and mistrust, you are not alone. It's a huge systemic problem. Every single flawed alert chips away at the trust we have in the entire system.
You know, there's actually a name for this. It's called alert fatigue. It's basically the story of the boy who cried wolf, but for the 21st century. When the system just keeps screaming about dangers that aren't actually dangers to you, your brain does what it's designed to do. It starts to tune out the noise.
And this is not just a theory. Look at this number. Almost 1 in 5 American adults have gone into their phone's settings and actively turned off these emergency alerts. Think about what that means. We've become so annoyed by the false alarms that we're willing to risk missing a real one. That's a huge problem.
So, to figure out how we can possibly fix this, we've got to go back to the scene of the crime, so to speak. We need to do a forensic breakdown of exactly what went wrong in Hawaii, using the official investigation reports.
Just look at this timeline. 8:07 a.m., the catastrophic alert goes out. Just 3 minutes later, the employee realizes the mistake. But a correction, a simple false alarm message, doesn't get sent to phones for another 35 minutes. That's an eternity when you think you have minutes to live. The system that caused the panic was completely powerless to fix it quickly.
So was it all just one person's fault? Not even close. The FCC investigation laid it bare. The system was a complete failure. There were no safeguards, no requirement for a second person to confirm the alert, and, amazingly, no pre-written, ready-to-go message to cancel a false alarm.
Now, Hawaii was a massive one-off disaster, but in other places, trust was being eroded in a different way. Take Denver, for example. Their problem wasn't a false alarm, it was a failure of targeting. They kept sending alerts meant for one tiny neighborhood to the entire city, over and over, leaving hundreds of thousands of people totally confused. A different kind of error, but with the exact same result, less public trust.
But here's the silver lining. Huge failures often force huge changes. After these incidents, federal regulators at the FCC knew they couldn't just blame human error. They had to redesign the tools themselves. They had to come up with new rules for all this noise.
And here is the first and maybe biggest change. It's a new tool called a silent alert. The FCC now allows officials to send emergency messages that pop up on your screen, but without that loud, heart-stopping alarm and vibration. This is a game changer for fighting alert fatigue. This table really shows you the strategy. From now on, that loud, jarring alert is reserved only for immediate threats to life. Think tornado warnings or an active shooter. But less urgent information, like a boil water advisory or an all-clear message, can be sent silently. It gives officials precision, letting them use a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer.
Of course, a new tool is pretty useless if you don't know how to use it. So, based on everything we've learned, we've put together a playbook. This is an essential guide for every public safety office on how to prevent these disasters from happening again.
It really boils down to 3 non-negotiable steps. First, verify. The Hawaii incident proves a 2-person rule has to be standard, no exceptions. Second, segment. The Denver mess shows you have to master the tech to only warn people actually in danger. And third, strategize. Every office needs a clear plan. When do we go loud? When do we go silent? You have to have the answers before the crisis hits.
Okay, we've seen how the system breaks and how the officials are trying to fix it. But the biggest question remains, what does this all mean for you? How are you supposed to know when to trust an alert and when to be skeptical? Here is your new mental checklist. From now on, if you hear that loud, terrifying tone, you need to take it seriously. It means immediate danger. Then, look for 2 things: a specific location, is it near you, and a clear action. What do they want you to do? And just remember, other, less urgent info might now show up silently. This is how you can quickly figure out the real risk to you and your family.
Look, at the end of the day, every single one of these changes, the new tech, the policies, the training, it's all about one thing:
rebuilding trust. The goal is to make the system so reliable that when that alert does come through, you don't second-guess it. You just act.
Which brings us to our final question. We can keep improving the technology, and we can write better rules for the people sending the alerts. But can we re-engineer the most complicated part of this entire system, our own human instinct to trust it again?
This has been a special report from the Human Error News Network.